Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now you have to see my screen. Okay, I already started recording. Okay, okay. Before our today's lecture, I want to start from the files that I shared with you. The first one is where you finish fill out your groups, project groups. So I talked about the practice groups. So here I have the tab, for instance, my group, Saturday from 4 p.m. until the 6 p.m., which is a practice lesson, not a lecture lesson, practice lesson for my group. So open your timetable in VSP and see when you have the practice lesson on web development. And depending on the practice lesson, you have to fill needed tab. For instance, here I have only 2 groups, which is also not correct. Yeah, we have almost all the students. I think we have in practice lesson approximately 30 students in one practice group. So please, who fill it incorrectly on unneeded tab, see your practice lesson group and select your group and change your tab depending on the timetable, because it's critical. It's critical, and deadline for this filling is tomorrow, I think, 28th. So where is the general? So the tab project, let's open it. So the deadline is tomorrow. So that's why please check it again for your group, the project groups, that you have to select it, that you have to enter it by the practice lessons. So here should be almost the 10 groups, and that's it. There's 10 groups by 3 students, it's almost the 30 students. Okay, it's the first thing. The second thing is your points for the first and other stations, second station. So I already put it your marks for the first station on VSP, but we have only the lab work points, which overall 6 lab works, which overall will be the 12 points. And as what the 24th of March was a deadline for putting first station marks, that's why I just skipped the midterm. So the midterm will be in the next station. So the midterm, which is the 10 points, will be added to the next station point, and overall in the second station we'll have the 48 points. So the 10 points, which is the midterm, and for our lab works, which will grade it like this. And 2 times we have the defense of your project, which is a group project that you started now. So the first one will be on the 13th week, which is the first front side of the defense of the project. And at the end, you will have to show the whole working project with the front side and back side, which is a 16 point. And overall, we have the 48 points for the second station and 12 points for the first station. And overall, we have in total, we have the 60 for the whole station without final. Okay, I think this is also clear. Okay, any questions regarding to the groups, so the project groups and your points?
Да, извините, можно спросить?
Yes.
Вот мы же тему выбрали проекта, затем в будущем, например, через неделю, несколько недель, если мнение там изменится, можно ли поменять ее, тему, тематику? Или это уже окончательно завтра дедлайн тему?
So regarding to the project titles, so I already uploaded the requirements for the projects. So when you select some project, so this column, which is a Git column, you have to enter the Git project, so the Git repository of your project. And inside of this repository, you have to enter, you have to create one file, at least one file, which is not empty, README file, where you have to discuss, or you have to describe your opinion. So the idea of the project, and this idea should be discussed with your assistant. An assistant will help you to change something if needed, to cover all the topics from our syllabus. So your project, you have to cover all the topics from the front side and from the back side, and your project should be appropriately suitable for our course. That's why any project that you selected with your group, you have to discuss it with your assistant. And after that, you will have the extra questions you can discuss with me or with your lecture teacher. Okay. Before adding after adding the GitHub URL, you have to discuss it with your assistant. You can do it in the practice lesson, and if needed, you have to change something in description or change the title of the project. But the functionality of the project can be increased week by week. It doesn't matter, which means, for instance, tomorrow you don't have to list all the functionality of the project. Tomorrow you have to understand whole logic, whole idea of your project, and after that you will extend the all needed functionality. But you have to, again, I say, you have to understand it with your assistant. So here I don't have any assistant, which is incorrect. So you have to select your assistant by the practice lesson. So which means in one tab there should be only two assistants. For instance, Bekpolat Ablay and Nurli. This is correct. We don't need any other assistant here because in practice lessons we have two assistants for each one. That's why I think I don't know who on my groups. I think Bek Sultan and Askar. I think Bek Sultan and Askar in my group. That's why only those groups whose assistants over here will be in this tab. Okay. Any other questions? So if you don't have questions, so we can continue. So today we have to start working with the Python language and with the introduction to Django. And on the right side, as you can see, we have the two tasks starting from today. So the first one is your lab work, and the second one is your project. For the project, you have to do the same thing what we did for the lab work. For instance, in the lab work, we are saying that you have to create a Django application and do some configurations or add some functionality. You have to do the same thing for your project again. So in the practice lesson, you have to show first your lab work, second your project, and this will be the whole lab work for depends to the week number 9. And we have 4 weeks, which will be the combining the lab work and project. And after that, you will have to defend the first part of the project, which means starting from today, you have to start working with the project from the both sides, which means front side you already know, and you can immediately create a front side, and back side will be the week by week by me added new functionalities, and you can just add the new functionality after the lab work to your project. But here you have to already start your front-end side of the project, which is Angular. Okay.
Can I ask?
Yes, you can.
Deadline will be until Wednesday?
You mean deadline of what? Sorry.
Project and lab work.
Yeah, for project and lab work will be the on Wednesday, because we have on Wednesday. So I will discuss with the assistants. I think the assistant will they changed the timetable. So by your timetable we have the on Wednesday, but actually they defense on Saturday. That's why I have to discuss with the assistants, and if we can change the deadline to until the Friday of the next week. Not Wednesday or Friday of the next week. I mean before the lecture time, so before the Saturday. Okay, I will discuss about it, but for now it's Wednesday. Okay, today we have to start lecture number 9. lecture number 9, and check it again. Okay, lecture number 9. So we know about the front-end side of development using the Angular and using some markups of the HTML and CSS, and adding some functionality using the Angular for components and so on. About it, you already know. And in last lectures of the Angular, we sent it the request using the HTTP client, send it the request to the online open APIs, which is a JSON placeholder, if I remember. JSON placeholder to get the resource, to get the list of items and show it inside of our Angular application. And this was just simulation. For instance, for updating some item, for adding a new item, this was just a simulation. But starting from now, starting from today, we want to start creating our own backside application, which will hold all the logic of our functionality. For instance, if you want to create some item, you have to create it. So from the Angular side, it will send a request to the backside to create a new item using the needed data. And the backside should get this data and store, if it's validated correctly, it will store in the database your item, and it will be listed in the list items that you enter the new item. Or if you want to update something, you can also do it, and it will be updated inside of the database. It's not a simulation anymore. It will just will be the real application. So today we have to think about from the first lecture, the structure of the first lecture that you already know, which is like this. On the left side, we have the Angular or React or any other client side. It might be the mobile applications also. On the right side, which is a blue rectangle, which is somehow called as a backend or server side, which contain such like actions, such like sections. So the database, our framework, which will hold our logic of the business logic of our project. And if we are working locally, we don't have any web server. So we have web server, but in our local computer. So we don't need to configure this type of applications if we are working locally. For this, we have own local web servers of our frameworks. In our case, Django will have also local server and so on. And they will work with the database. And we know about the other types of the data, so languages and databases. And this side will be as a backend side, but we don't have any hosting for now because we'll work on our laptop. So this green rectangle, vertical rectangle, also will be the skip it because we don't need to configure this type of configurations. So we have only two parts. So the framework part and the database part, which is which will work with each other. So we know about the frameworks, for instance, Django, Flask, Rails, Sinatra, and so on. They created using some language. For instance, Django written by Python. Flask also by Python. For instance, YII created using a language called PHP and so on. Spring with the Java. So we, before starting learning the framework, as we did in the previous attestation, we have to think about the language itself, which means in previous attestation, we think about the JavaScript and we learned about the JavaScript. And after that, we will go into the Angular and try to understand what is inside it. Because Angular was written in JavaScript, but for our comfortability, was created the TypeScript, which can we use inside of the Angular. The same thing here. To start learning the Django, we have to start from the Python side. So from the previous subjects, you already know about the key points of the Python. That's why today we'll skip the showing the practice lessons, practice examples of the Python. We'll discuss it only on the slides, and we'll just skip that part. And after that, we have to understand what is the Django and how it will work, and creating a first application inside using the Django. Okay, about the about the frameworks we already know, and we know about the React application, so we can create the Angular application. And Angular application somehow will communicate with our Django application at the end. So for communication language will be our API that we already discussed. So API will be created from the backside, which means from the Django side will be open some APIs, which says, Django says, so I have such like a URLs. Any clients can send a request to that URL to get some needed data or adding a new item. Such like items will be called like APIs. So API should be understandable for everyone. We already know about it. So the format for the rules for the API, which is RESTful, which will be helpful for different type of developers of the platforms and so on. About it, we also discussed. For that URLs that was created from the Django side, there might be different type of HTTP requests. The methods might be getting some item using the GET request, posting some new data to enter the new item to the database, putting some item from the database. I want to update some item. So deleting and head an option will be used for requesting to the headers and the communication with each other. So for creating an API from the Django side, you have to pay your attention to creating such like APIs using these rules should be like this. So the URLs in APIs, which was opened from the Django side, should be like a sentences where resources, which is the name of the tables. In some cases, you can think about it, or name of the models. Should be like a nouns, and HTTP method should be like verbs, which means I want to get list of companies. I want to add, or I want to post new company to this list. I want to get company with ID 23. I want to update company with ID 23, and I want to delete company with that ID 23. Such like a URL you have to open from the Django side. So communication data formats might be different, but in most cases will be used JSON, and in our case also will be the JSON. But in different applications, might be also in some cases can be used the XML format, which is also perfectly work with any data. But for us, this type of format, which is more comfortable, because from the Angular side, this is just a JavaScript object notation. From Angular side, it's perfectly easy to just parse this data to the Django objects. And for Python side, it can be also converted to the dictionary, as you know from the Python language from the previous lecture. This is our just dictionary, which will have the just key and value. In our case, root, it's a key, and this object is value. Inside it, we have the age, which is a key, and 18, we have the value, and so on. So sending requests will be between these two applications. In our case, will be the HTTP requests, but in some cases, if you have configured the HTTP secure, which is HTTPS, you can use HTTPS also. So about the responses, you already know you have this different sections. So sections with the starting from 2, starting from 3, 4, and 5. Okay, about the Python, a little bit, just to recap your knowledge without any examples. So about the Python, we already know about it's a dynamically high-level programming language. High level means all the things, almost the many functions which were already written by the developers. You can just use them to do some functionality. So the dynamic means any variable is just an object, depending on the assigning value to the variable, the data type will be dynamically changed. For instance, a equals to 1 and a equals to hello. Depending on the value, they dynamically change the data. So the interpreted means we have the compiled language, which is C++, Java, and so on. And we have the JavaScript and Python, they are interpreted, which means you can run your code line by line. So JavaScript and Python, they are almost the same for running process. So object-oriented, which means you can create your classes and all the knowledge from the object-oriented programming, all the paradigms of that knowledge, you can implement it inside of the Python. You can work with the exceptional parts. We can check for any exception or raising some exceptions if we have. And depending on the task, you will have to implement the functionality of that. So the comfortable for working, which is very simple to understand, very readable code for the Python, and community is very wide. That you can find any problem, you can find the solution for any problem inside of the community, because we know that the Python community is very wide, because beside the web development, Python is very widely used in other areas also, like data mining or machine learning or any other languages, any other spheres. So for now we have two versions of the Python. So the Python number 2 and Python number 3, but Python number 2.7, which is very widely used in a few years ago, they just stopped contributing that version, which is a 2.7, not contributed from the 2020, I think from the September. That's why we have to immediately start working with the Python 3. We can just skip the Python 2, and we have to work with the Python 3. But in our course, it doesn't matter which version, I mean, Python 3.5 or Python 3.7 or 3.9, it doesn't matter. I think they are almost the same for our course. But in the future, if you have some project with the strictly Python version, which is Python 3.5.6, you have to work with the appropriate version. Okay. So about comments, we know about the Boolean values, we already know. So about the strings, also we know that we have the different type of values. So we might have the description of the something, or the documentation of some module or class. And this syntaxes was from the Python 2. So if you have the not Unicode, so not Unicode element inside of the string, you have to write like this. But in Python 3, we don't need to like this. We can just store them inside of the simple string, and it can be stored needed version. So as we know, the Python, so the strings are also the list of items, which is just an array. And we can work like arrays using the Python. So here I have the concatenation of the merging of the two strings. And we have different type of mergings. So this is the first one, the format function, which is the second one. And we have the percent sign, which is a percent sign format, which is the third one. And we have the F strings, which is the fourth one, which is the most useful and most speedily working the string builders. So all the values starting from the 0 until the 1 for converting to the uppercase or lowercase, and passing using the indexes or using the name of the variables. Inside of the Python, we have the 4 type of main collections. First one is list. Second one is tuples. Third one is dictionary, and last one is set. So we have 4 type of collections, and for all of these collections, we have commonly used functions. One of them is len. Len is just a function that will return the number of elements inside of the collection. It doesn't matter which collection. So in our case, we have collection list of chars, and it will just return the number of elements, which is the number 3, which is number 3 over here. So go further for the sequence operations, which means the list operations. This might be work for tuples also. So the 0, which is the index, -1, which is the last index, all these things from the 0 until the 1, which is the same thing as like this. Appending or removing from the last element, appending to the last, and again the length of the list. And the second one is dictionary. So about the dictionary, you already also know we have the key value data inside of the dictionary. We have so one element and two elements. If you want to get the length of this dictionary, it will return number 2. For working with the dictionary, you have two options to get a value by key. The first one is using a square brackets. The second one is using a get function. So the difference between these two is the first one expects that this key guaranteed that it should be exist inside of this dictionary. If you are writing like square brackets like this, you are guaranteeing that this key exists inside of this dictionary. But if you don't know that this dictionary can be skipped inside of this dictionary, you have to use a get. Because if you don't have this key inside of this dictionary and you are writing a square brackets, you will have the exception. So you will have this throwing the exception, and your program will just crash. And in that case, you have to use a get function, which will try to get this key. And if you don't have such like a key inside of the dictionary, it will just return the none. Without any errors, it will just return the none. We have here second option here as a default. We'll show the examples with later, and it might be in next lectures. So get function as a second variable will get we can get the default value. So it will try to find this key inside of the dictionary, and if it cannot find, it will return just the default value of the dictionary, the default value that you passed here. Okay, the keys, values, list, keys, list, and items, which is just combination of these two. So items means it will just return the list of tuples. Tuple contain key and value. These are just items. And len will return the number of elements inside of the dictionary. So the signing and comparison. So the signing, which is we already know, the comparison, which is two times equal sign, and which is equal, is not equal. And if we are trying to work with the none, so checking for the none, it's recommended to use the is instead of these two equal sign, because none, it's not a value. It cannot be compared with the equal sign. It cannot be equal to the none. That's why this is operator or is not operator can be used when we have the none value. So the expressions, so the opening the blocks, for instance, inside of the C++, for opening the sum block, you have to write so the curly brackets and close them, and you write the block of this, the section of this block inside of these curly brackets. Inside of the Python, you have to just write the columns, and skipping the for space intending, you can write the block of the if, and same thing for the else if, and so on. For this, here I have the only for loop, except this for loop, we have also the while loop. And instead of this sequence might be any iterable object. What does it mean, iterable? Iterable means the object that can be executed one by one. It might be list, it might be tuple, it might be dictionary, set, or generator, or string, and anything. For instance, range function will return the generator for your values. Like this, you can loop over any iterable object. And continue break, and the same thing, you already know about it. So the creating of the function, which is a keyword def, and name of the function, and parameters and arguments. We have two types of the arguments, which are required, like this bar, and optional, which is like which will have the default value in the definition of the function. So in our case, this one is required, and this one is just optional variable. Creation of the classes. So this type of functions, which from the both sides, which covered with the 2 underscores, they are called the magic functions. We have the init, for instance. We have the str, which is a string function. We have other functions which will help you to implement the different type of functionalities. In our case, init function will work as a constructor of the class. So the documenting your modules or classes. So you can implement, you can describe your module like this, and inside of this class, you can also describe the what for was created that class. An exception using the try except block, you can try to open some connections with some files or with some databases or anything. And if you will have some errors over here while connecting, it will go to the except block. And in the except block, you can store them. You can write in the log files or sending some emails to the admins and so on. You can do it inside of the except function. Except block. And we have else and finally block. So the else block will be done for doing some extra data, extra functions. So the extra functionality after trying to connect to some database. And finally will be executed always. For instance, while connecting, if you don't have any problems, so except block will be skipped, but finally will be executed always. Why? Because finally block will be used for disconnecting or just closing some streams if you open it. For instance, if you open the connection with some stream here, after doing some actions, you have to close it. You have to close it after finishing your logic. That's why the finally block can be used for cleaning up all the connections with the streams. So the namespaces, which is just importing the libraries or importing the name of the classes or functions. So if you open like importing the whole file, you can do it like this. And if you want to import some name of the function, so the name of the function or name of the class, in that case, you can use such like a syntaxes, and we have the aliases like this. If you use a decimal inside of your program so many times, in that case you can alias it like D, and if it's comfortable for you again, and you can use this D inside of the code. So the styling for the Python language, which is a PIP8, which is a for space intending, lowercase methods. For space intending, I think it's clear. Lowercase methods means the name of the methods should be snake cased. In some cases, it's not lowercase, it's just a snake case. Snake case means each word will be connected with the underscores. So name of the methods, name of the variables also should be the snake case. So except the constant values. So the constant values should be uppercased variables, but all other variables should be snake cased. Name of the classes should be camel cased, which means each word should start with the capital letter. So the line breaks around, I think around the 80 and 100, it's enough. So it might be perfect if you have the line breaks between the 80 and 100. Okay, installing the packages. So today we'll compare the Python and Django side with the Angular and all the tools which you use inside of the Angular to understand the difference between these two, and the common cases also. So inside of the Python, to install some new package, we can use different options. So one of them is easy install, but in our case, we'll use a pip install some package. So pip, it's just the name, so the package manager, which can be used, which can download some package for you and install it. If you know inside of the Angular, you will also have such like a package manager, which is called NPM, which is Node Package Manager. To install some new library, you have to write npm install and some name of the library. The same thing here, pip install name of the library. npm install in Angular, pip install in, sorry, not Angular, it's just a Node. In our case, for installing the package inside of the Python, you have to use a pip install and some package. So I showed the example from the, so let it be, so web development 21, week number 6. So week number 6. Okay, I want to show you, your project, which is the last project from the week number 6 Angular project. We have different type of files and libraries. So we'll start from the package.json. Package.json file will store all the installed packages. So here we have the package name and the version of the package. Package name and version of the package that was installed inside of our this project. And this package.json file will store such like a data. Okay. And then we have npm install and npm just I. After installing the npm install, we'll have the folder called node modules. If you see the content of the node modules folder, it will store all the installed applications. So not applications, it's just libraries. All installed libraries for your application, for your Angular application. So it's just node modules folder. And this folder should be unique for each machine, for each laptop. For instance, that's why we are saying you don't have to need to upload this node module to the GitHub, because if someone else wants to run your program, they have to download your application and they have to install it locally in their laptops. That's why this called somehow environment of your application, which means node module should be uniquely environmentally for different type of machines. That's why to the GitHub we are skipping this node modules package. If you can see to the Git, inside of the Git ignore file, you have such like a folder. So it says node modules should be skipped while we are uploading our project to the GitHub. So I think this is clear, and you already know. So I'm saying here the package, so the virtual environment inside of the Python, which is the same thing. So using the pip, you can install the packages, and these packages should be stored locally for your project. For your project, and installing packages is going to the folder called side packages. If here we have the node modules inside of the pip installing, it will go to the side packages folder for the Python library. So that's why we have to know that, for instance, my program needs, for instance, Django version 2. The other program wants to run Django version 3, but we have the different versions. I cannot run their program, but they cannot run my program. Even they can run, there might be some errors. That's why we have to somehow isolate each program using some versions like this. So package.json and some folder which will hold all the installed applications and all. And for that, inside of the Python, we have the virtual environments. Virtual environments is almost the same thing here. So we have the one file which will hold the versions and the packages, and the folder which will hold the installed applications. Okay. So the visual environment. So visual environment, for creating a virtual environment inside of the Python, we have such like a command you have to install it, and I will pass the link. How can you install on your application on your laptop? Okay. So after installing the virtual environment, so let's go to our folder. So week number 9. Make dir group 2. To install the after installing the virtual environment, you will have the such like a command. Virtual environment, it says you can use such like extra options to create the virtual environment. And this environment will create isolated Python environment with the own side packages, which means in my laptop, I will have globally installed Python. For instance, if you type the Python, in my case, I have the Python 2. If someone types like this, it will open the Python 2, 2.7. And concurrently in my laptop, I have Python 3 also. If you are writing a Python 3, it will open the Python 3.6.5. So, which means if I am running like this, for instance, pip install some package, in this case, this package will be installed to my operating system, not for application. It will be installed for my operating system's Python package library. So if I'm installing some library to needed application, for instance, I'm creating a new Django applications and I want to install it inside of this application. In this case, I want to create a virtual environment. So virtual environment, how can we create? So virtual env, which is the name of the command. The second one is just environment. For instance, commonly the environments called like env. It might be .env. It's just the name of the environment. It doesn't matter. For instance, it might be, for instance, let it be from the in previous group we created like my first env, my first environment. If I'm hitting the enter right now, it will just try to find the Python from operating system, and here we can see that it says 2.7, and it says Python is not recommended. This version is included. So it says this 2.7 is not contributed anymore. That's why you have to use a Python 3. But in some projects, I need a Python 2. That's why I already installed it. Okay, after running, so virtual env my first env. After hitting the enter, it will try to find the Python command, and what says this Python command will be used inside of this environment. If you hit enter, it will create the environment for using the Python that is by default set it in your operating system. By default, as you can see, if I'm entering here, it will open the Python 2. That's why this environment will have the Python 2 by default. So if you see, it will create the folder by the name of the environment. You can enter to that folder, and this folder will hold the minimum number of folders and files which will be used for your environment. So this environment will have inside of the lib function, so the lib directory, we have the Python version, which is a Python 2.7, and inside of the Python version, folder, we have the side packages, as we discussed, side packages folder. Side packages folder, which will hold all the installed applications like Node modules inside of the Angular. So we said all the installed packages will go into the side packages. So side packages over here. Side packages inside of the lib, Python, and side packages. So as you can see here, we have the default, the minimum number of libraries that you have inside of the empty environment. So how can we see the list of environments. So how can we see the list of installed packages? So pip freeze. We have the pip free. So pip free I have here. So we don't have any environment here. Pip free freeze sees the list of packages that was installed in my operating system. In my operating system, it says this package with this version was installed. This package with this version was installed, which is globally installed libraries. So pip freeze shows all the installed applications inside of the environment. So for now, I don't have any environment. That's why it shows the globally installed packages. So we created environment, but we're not using this environment now. To use this environment, you have to activate it. To activate inside of the Mac OS or Linux, this command. So let's open here. So after creating environment like this, for creating environment inside of the Windows, you have to write Python virtualenv and name of the environment. After creating it, you have to activate the environment. To activate it, you have to run the the file called activate. This file located inside of the environment. We have the file folder called bin, and inside of the bin we have the activate file. So the source and path to the activate file. Hit enter, and on the left side you have to see such like an indicator that says starting from now your terminal works inside of this environment, which means pip freeze or pip install some package will be installed locally to this environment. And if you are like this, here we have pip install some package here without any environment. This package will be installed globally. For all projects will be used this package, which is not correct because each project will have their own versions for different applications. And for now, it says if you are working with the pip, this will be installed inside of this environment. Let's see freeze. And as you can see here, we don't have any, so it's just a warning for 2.7. We don't have any installed packages inside of this environment. That's why it's just empty. But we have here, for instance, inside of the operating system, we have installed packages already. Okay. After activating this environment, if you run Python, you will have by default 2.7 Python that was created by for your environment. So to exit from the environment, you have to write deactivate, and it will just exit from this environment. So let's create one more environment. So virtualenv second env, and in this case I want to use a Python free. So in my operating system I have Python free. So in this case I want to create an environment using the Python free. In that case you have to pass extra arguments, which is the -p, which means we want to send the Python version Python free. And pay attention, if you are writing like this, you have to Python free installed in your operating system. And hit enter, and it will create environment with the Python free by default. So after creating environment, so you can see that this folder was created. And let's activate this folder. So this environment, second bin activate. So activated. Let's check. I'm writing not Python free, just Python. And it says by default it's installed Python free. And that's it for creating a different versions for the Python, the environments. So for Windows, after creating environment, you have to, without any source, because source is not valid for the Windows operating system, you have to just run the file called activate.bat inside of the scripts under the folder of the environment scripts and bat. You have to start, and on the left side you have to see such like an environment that was created. Okay. Okay, that's it for working in the environments. Here we have also, we don't have any installed packages because it's just an empty environment. After installing pip install some package, this freeze folder, freeze command will show the installed library name and installed version. Okay. So we can continue. So just 1 minute. After 1 minute, we'll continue. Okay. Guys, let's continue. Okay. We already installed the environment, so activated it. And after that, you can start installing the packages inside of this environment. Okay, that's it. Okay, let's start. What is a Django? So after learning the Python, so you already know about it. You can think about the Django. What is Django? Django is a high-level framework for rapidly creating web development applications. So the web applications as a backend side for implementing any logic. Django, it's not this Django. It's for creating web applications which can communicate with the databases and which can implement the business logic of any functionality using the Python language and the capabilities of the Django itself. So the tools for working with the Django, they are already complete, and they can be used different type of tools to improve or optimize your application speed or other things, or tools for debugging and so on. They are all already created. Data modeling with Python classes, which means Python classes which you created inside of the Django. It's a simple classes, can be modeled as a table inside of the database. This is very powerful, and you can think about it. So the production ready admin side interface, which means after creating a Django application, you will have immediately concurrently the admin side of your application, which can be used as a CMS system, which is a content management system of your application. So the elegant system for mapping URLs in Python code. So the inside of the Django, as a working process of the URLs, which will be discussed a little bit later, which is also powerful and can be understandable for everyone. Generic views for or mixins can be used also and can speed development of the functionality. So main components of the Django. Design pattern under the Django framework, which is the MTV, which stands for the model, template, and view, compared with the MVC, which is model, view, controller. You have to think and to try to understand what is the this design pattern says. So it says it's a model, template, and view. And the models inside of the Django, they are just Python classes that can be used as a Django or object relationship mapping. So which means the very commonly used requests to the database can be used using the existing functions from the Django, which is very powerful and easy to implement. So the template engine, you can create your templates and render any data to this template. And templates can be not only the HTML files, it can be also just a simple TXT files and any files that can be rendered in data. So the views inside of the Django, they are just functions, Python functions that you already know. But these functions by default should get as an input, as an argument request, and it should it should return as a response one variable, and that's it. Requests coming into the function and response goes out. So the URL patterns inside of the Django can be used using the regular expressions. If you want, you can write your own regular expressions to implement for matching the URLs for the needed APIs. So the logic and how it works inside of the Django, requests comes in. Requests from mobile app, application, Angular application, it might be React application, and so on. They want to send a request. Request might be for getting some data, for adding, or anything. Requests comes into the Django, and inside of the Django will be the logic of the some actions, and it will return the response to the client side. And what goes inside of the Django will be like this. Requests comes in after the web servers and so on. It will come to the Django project, and immediately will be passed with the middlewares. Middlewares, they are just checkers or bridges that can check your request is correct or not. In the level of middlewares can be checked if the user authenticated or not, if the user sent the needed token or not. Such like a comparison, such like a validations can be done using the middleware before the logic of before doing some logic inside of the Django. So middlewares, if everything is correct, if everything is okay, they will just pass this request to the bottom side. In the bottom side will be the URLs, all existing URLs, which is all existing APIs. In other words, all existing APIs will get this request, and this request URL will be matched with the URL inside of this list. If we have such like a matching, it will just run needed view, not it will run needed function. If we don't have any URL like from the request, it will just throw for 404, which is not found, which is the Angular side will sending the request to the not existing API. And inside of the URL part, and they will be checked such like exceptions. If we found some matching URL for the request, in that case, URL just will call some function inside of the view. Inside of the view, this request will come in as an argument, and depending on the request, it will be the view will use our models, and our models, our database, if we need, for manipulating, for getting the data from the database and so on. If we needed some templates, rendering some HTML and so on, after filtering, after finishing the business logic, the result of the actions will be returned as a response to from the Django side, from the Vue side, and Vue pass it back to the middleware, and middleware pass it back to the web server, and from the web server we'll get the response of our Angular application. So where is here? Angular or mobile application, it doesn't matter. For Django, it doesn't matter who will get this response at the end. So, like as we discussed before, when we talked about the Angular, inside of the Angular, we said about the file called package.json. Package.json file will store all the libraries that was installed with the versions. The same thing, we can do it inside of the Python. Inside of the Python, the file will be stored inside of this file, which is requirements.txt. This file will store all the installed libraries. As we know, pfreeze will list all the installed libraries, and using this arrow, this command says, if we don't have any file like this, it should start. It should, so let's do it. For instance, pfreeze, for now it's just empty. It's just empty. Pfreeze requirements.txt. If you enter, you will get such like a file, but this file is empty. This file is empty because this command returns empty string. That's why file was created, but without any packages that was installed inside of pfreeze. That's why for now let's remove it. And such like a command can be used for updating the requirements.txt file after installing some packages. And someone else who want to run your program, like our Angular application, someone else should run after cloning your application from the GitHub. They have to run the command npm install to install all the packages. The same thing here. Someone else, if someone else want to run your program, Django application, after after downloading or cloning your repository, they have to run such like a command, pip install -r requirements.txt, which means install recursively all the packages inside of this file. Basically, we are running command like pip install name of the package. But here we are using this file to install all the packages that was listed inside of this file. Okay, that's it. So it's time to start for installing the Django. So we are located inside of the second environment. I want to install Django. So for today, we have three versions of the main three versions of the Django. The Django version 1, Django version 2, and 3. The third version was released in 2020, in the middle of the 2020. That's why in some reasons, for some cases, there might be not solutions for some reasons in some functionalities. That's why we want to, and the Django version 3 is a little bit different with the Django version 2. That's why we want to use, in our course, we want to use Django version 2. And that's why for installing the Django version 2, we want to set a value, like it might be Django version. Let's try to like this. So it will just the pip install Django 2 times equal sign, which says we want to set a version of the Django, and it's just a 2, and it will, sorry. It will just install the Django version 2 to your environment, in our case, to this environment. And after that, if you run the command freeze, you will see the Django, and except the Django, you will have the one more PyTZ library, which Python time zone library, which will go with the Django dependency. This library installed because Django was installed. Django cannot be cannot be run without this library. That's why this Django inside of the configurations of the Django says if someone starts installing the Django, it should be automatically installed the PyTZ also. That's why we have such like two libraries that was installed inside of in our environment. So after installing the Django, you will have the command called Django admin. Django admin command can be used for creating a new application of the Django. Django admin start project. It's just a command for project. Django admin is the name of the command, and start project also it's a keyword, and the last variable, which is demo, just the name of the application, the name of the Django application. Hit enter and see, and as you can see here we have the folder. As you can see, we created our application in the same level as our environment, because environments shouldn't push it to our GitHub. That's why environment and application, they are separately located in different folders. But in your case, you can also like in our Angular application, inside of the Angular, the node modules located inside of the application. Like this, you can also do it. So create your environment inside of the application. But in that case, you have to enter the name of the environment to the git ignore file to skip it while we are pushing our application to the repository. That's why I just separate them like this. So go to the into of this file, and in this file you will have the minimum number of files and folders. So we want to open it. So let's see for the slides. So install the package, creating the empty project, and before the migrations, let's see the Windows side. So Windows pip install the Django with the version. For running the for creating an empty application, you have to run Python scripts Django admin py, start project, and demo. And like this will work inside of the Windows operating system. So after entering to the folder, I want to open it using the PyCharm. PyCharm you have to download. I will post the link for downloading the community version of the PyCharm. So you can activate it using the university email address. So the charm and dot means I want to open this folder, this location inside of the PyCharm. This command will do the such like cases. Okay, and it will open inside of the PyCharm our application. And inside of the PyCharm, you have to do the same so the little bit configurations inside of the PyCharm to work properly with your project. So it says, so if you hover with the mouse, it says Python version 3 does not support these syntaxes. It says PyCharm thinks that your project was created in Python number 2.7. And this syntaxes cannot be executed in Python 2.7. That's why you have to configure your PyCharm to work with your created environment. We know about the environment. The second environment will work with the Python 3. That's why open the PyCharm preferences, enter here interpreter. Inside of the interpreter, by default, it will take, in my case, it will take the Python number 2.7. And that's why I want to add here new environment. And that's, I say, existing environment because I already created environment. Inside of the, and I will go to the desktop examples, web development 2021, with number 9, group 2, and second, which is our second environment, which was I used Python number 3. Inside of the environment, we have the folder called bin. Inside of the bin, we have the Python files, so the Python executable files. So we have the Python 3 and Python 3.6. I will select Python 3.6 and hit enter here, and hit enter again here. And as you can see here, it will just list all the applications, all the libraries that was installed inside of this environment. So second environment, it identified second environment, and here I have the list of all installed libraries in this environment. As you can see, Django and PyTZ was installed before when I installed the Django, and these three, pip, setup tools, and wheel, and they are by default libraries for any environment. After that, apply it, okay, and it will start indexing at the bottom side, as you can see here, indexing your environment, which means PyCharm to start seeing your environments, and it should identify that we are using a Python number 3 and without any errors, as you can see here. Python number 3 can be used such like a syntaxes. That's why it will not show the errors anymore, and it will perfectly work for further needs. And as you can see here in the environment part here, it can see also the Python number 3, the second environment, and that's it. Applying, and that's it. So let's see the files and folders that was created. So the manage.py file, which is manually created, so the manage.py file will be not changed until of our course, because this file is just configuring file and the main file for running the Django commands and manipulating with the Django application by the terminal. How can you change the database? How can you run your application? Can be done using the manage.py file. This file will load your settings from this folder, settings.py file. So as you can see here, we have the settings.py file. It will load these settings and will see your arguments, system arguments, which we will run over terminal and execute them. So just a configuration file for the Django. It's a manage.py file. And we have only one folder, which is a name. They are the same of our application. The name demo. Inside of this inner demo folder, we have the 4 files. The first one is init, which is empty. So just it says the Python package directory, which is a demo. Second one is settings.py file. By the name, it can be clear that settings.py will store all the settings of our application. It says so it was created using Django 2.0, and from here we are listing our basic settings of our Django application. The base dir, which is just a path to our application, the secret key, which can be used for different purposes. So the debugging, installed applications. As you can see here, we don't create any application inside of the Django, but it says installed application, which comes from the Django. It says Django contrib admin, Django contrib auth, and so on. All these applications comes from the Django itself. So we was created created the empty application, empty Django project. Inside of the project, already we have such like modules that was installed inside it. So as we discussed before, middlewares already also set it. Middlewares that will check for different purposes, for session and for CSRF token and so on, for authenticating middlewares. For, as you can see here, from the auth middleware, we have the authentication middleware, which will check the user that who sent the request is authenticated or not. So we are using a root URL conf file variable, which indicates to this URL file. Inside of the settings, we are saying for entry point for our application, URLs will be located under this URL. So the root URL conf. About the templates, which templates we can use. We have one more file here, the WSGI, which stands for Web Server Gateway Interface. Web Server Gateway Interface will create, if you open it, it's just also almost the simple file. This file also will not be changed for entire of our course. This file will just create an application. Just a second. Guys, sorry. So from the settings, we have the link to the application, so the gateway application, which was created over here. And as I said before, this file will not change it until this course. And this will also just load your settings and create an application, which is a Django application, which will start it when we run a comment. And here we have the configuration for the databases. So by default, Django application will configure your application with the SQLite database, which is also table-based relational database, but for the for the data, for the minimum data. For instance, for the large number of items, for the large number of tables or database contents, the SQLite is not comfortable and will work very slowly. But for minimum projects, it might be pretty enough. And it says inside of the database configuration will be used like this region, which was located in the Django, and the name of the database SQLite file, and this file will be stored inside of our application. That's why it says base directory, which links to this folder, and inside of this folder will be created such like a file after creating a database, but we don't yet. That's why we don't have such like a file. And here we have the authentication password validators, which will be used for validating the password. And here I have the internationalization for changing in our application. By default, it will be in English. If you need, you can change to the Russian. And after changing to the Russian, you have to collect the locals for storing the both language values. For time zone, by default, if it is a UTS function, so the UTS time zone. And the last thing, which is a static URL, which is under this URL will be downloaded static files or static images or CSS files, JavaScript files. This is just our simple settings for empty project. And that's it. So the settings we already seen. So we skip it about URLs. So URLs folder, URL file URLs by file will store all the existing URLs. In other words, all existing APIs. If you remember from the Angular side, you have the file called app router model. Inside of this file, you listed your URLs, and for each URL on the right side, you set it the component which will be rendered if someone enters to this URL. Like this, in our Python language, and in our Django, these URLs by file will store all the existing URLs in our application. And this URL, the first argument will be the URL to the pass function. Second argument will be the function that will be executed when we match to this URL. And that's it. And that's it for the files that we got from the empty Django project. And now I want to try to run our project. Python manage_py. If you hit enter, you can see all the existing commands that can be used for the manage_py file, which is which was created, which was come from the Django application itself. So in red, you can see the name of the applications. For instance, if you open here, so the auth application over here, the content types over here, and Django application over here. Django itself, it's just a core. It's not application, it's a Django core commands that was created by developers for initializing database and so on, for migrations, for static files over here, the sessions over here. Like this for all existing applications inside of the Django project, you will have the different type of commands. One of them is run server, which is under the Django core. So if you hit this run server, it says you have 14 unapplied migrations, which means inside of these applications, these applications will have their own migrations. Migration means you have the Angular, you have the Django project, and you have the database, and your database and your Django project models, they have to be the same. They have to be like a synchronized. If you are changing some column name inside of the Django application, it should be immediately applied inside of the database. That's why such like communication between this application and Django will be called the migrations. So for these applications, we have already created migrations, and it says 14 migrations which are not implemented yet. That's why, and it says it recommended to run this command to run those migrations. Even we don't run this, it starts our application and it says under this URL, you can see your application. If you hit, you can open and you can see the empty Django applications, which was installed successfully, which can be seen like this, which is just a default page for the Django. As you can see, the version number 2. And that's it. Let's stop our application, Command C, and we want to run migration. While migration, we have the two commands. The first one is for checking the difference between your database and between your application, which is make migrations. This command will check all the applications that was listed inside of the installed app, all the applications which is over here, and we will, after creating our own applications, we will write our own applications over here. And this command will check, starting from this admin until all this list, will check the difference between your application and the database. If this command will find, if this command will find any changes, any difference between the database and application, it will create a file for migration, which means it says you have to run this migration to synchronize your application and database. And that, as you can see, we have the no changes detected because we don't have any own application, and for all of these applications, their migrations already exist. That's why this is the first command for checking for the difference for the migrations. The second one is for applying. For applying those migrations, you have to run the command called manage.py migrate. And after running this, you can see that inside of those applications, so the admin, auth, contrib, so the content types and session, there was applied some migrations, which means the changes inside of the database. Changes inside of the database, and as you can see, it will immediately become as a database file, and you can open it. And after opening inside of the scheme, inside of the main scheme, you can see such like a tables which was created over here. This tables was created over here, and as you can see, as a prefix, and all these tables was created inside of this application. That's why the auth groups, auth users, and so on. So Django will come with the already created user table, and if you want, you can overwrite or change the columns or extend the columns if you need. But the Django will come already created the Django, so the users table, groups, and all other minimum working processes for the Django application. So after running the migration, let's run application again. And as you can see, without any warnings and errors, just reload it. So you can see this IP address, or you can see the same thing using the local host. They are the same thing. So, okay. And if you open the URLs, so which means this is our Django application, and I am writing some URL over here, for instance, ASD, and it says page not found, which is 4.4. Why? Because when I am typing some URL and hitting enter, what's going on? It goes to our settings, and it says to the root URL conf file, also the conf variable, to see the entering point for the URLs. And it says demo URLs and it says demo URLs, which means inside of the demo folder we have the URL spy file, and this request when I am sending this request to our application, it will try to find this URL inside of this file. And inside of this file, we have only one URL, which is admin. If we don't match this type of URL, it says 4.404, which is not found, which is correct. And if you have matching here, as we have here, admin, if you have the matching here, it will open this login page for the admin side. If you are changing this like this, ASD, and as you can see, after changing and saving the file, it will just reload and rerun your application. And if you just reload it, it says page not found because admin is not a valid URL anymore. That's why ASD, and it will open the same thing. That's why this is the URL spy file, which is almost the same thing as our in our Angular application. It's a router module file. Okay, admin, but we don't have any user here, and we cannot create here. We don't have the registration button. That's why I want to open the new tab here, and using the Python manage by file, we can use the command called create super user, which was also comes from the Django. Super user. Why I'm creating a super user? Because only super users can manipulate inside of the so the admin side of the Django, but super user will have all the actions ability to manipulate using any data. So the username will be the admin gmail.com, some simple password, and it says successfully created user, and our terminal is running, and we're working in the second terminal. That's why our server is running. And let's try to authorize inside of the Django admin side. So as you can see here, we don't enter anything yet, but we have such like interface and such like admin side for our application. As we discussed it here, it says production ready admin side interface, which is over here. So we have the name of the application. Here we have the application name, and inside of the application we have two tables. First one is groups. We don't have any groups yet, and second one is users. We have one user which was created from the terminal over here, and you can see you can see and change the data if you need, so that this permissions, so active, inactive, if this checkpoint which was activated, if it's disabled, this user cannot authorize anymore, and is stuff for getting the ability to enter to the admin side. Super user can do anything and so on. You can save it. You can create a new user, for instance, admin2. And for instance, saving it, and same thing for instance, let it be today, and that's it. And using this admin side, you can manipulate, and like a CMS system, you can control the content of your application. For instance, after creating new application, so after creating a new application like this, or this exists inside of the Django own applications, they will be also, we can configure inside of the applications how they have to shown inside of the admin side, and admin side also will be available for the admins. For instance, if someone wants to add new item to the internet, show the online shop platform, admins or managers will enter to this admin side and will add a new item which will be seen inside of the application, so Angular application inside of the iOS and Android and so on. So they can manipulate the content of the application. And as you can see here, this database and this users table, inside of the users table, as you can see, we have the two items. The first one is admin, second one is admin2, but admin2 is not super user, and that's it. You can see the such like a database. So okay, so the time is okay. So for today, I think it's enough. So your task is for the next week. The lab number 7, which I will upload today, and concurrently the project. Project means, as you know, in the 13th week, you have to define the first part of the project, which means front side of the project. Starting from this week, you have to start implementing the Angular side of your project, and you have 4 weeks for implementing Angular and concurrently adding the functionality to the backside. And at the end, on the 14th week, you have to show the working application Angular with the Django in one computer. So okay. So any questions for now, guys? So from the slides, so the requirements. Oh, so we forgot about the requirements. That's why let's show. So inside of the root directory, I want to use pip freeze requirements.txt, and that's it. After installing new item, for instance, after installing pip install, so the pip install something, after installing something, you have to do this command to update the requirements.txt file. And this file will store all the installed libraries with their versions, like package.json. And other students who works in your group, they can just clone your application without any environment, and they have to just run pip install requirements to run your application. And this is starting. URLs we already discussed. We'll continue in the next week. So the view, and that's it. Okay, questions, guys? Any questions for now?
Извините, вы можете, пожалуйста, ответить в LS в Teams после собрания?
Еще раз, как? Не слышно. LS, что-то написали мне, да? Teams.
Ага. Спасибо.
Ок, хорошо.
А чтобы SQLite базу данных открыть, надо скачать SQLite?
Нет, не нужно, просто нужно будет в PyCharm, он предложит, наверное. У меня уже установлен. В PyCharm нужно будет просто, чтобы открыть этот файл таким образом. Когда открываете, когда вот такой файл создается, PyCharm он сам предложит extension какой-то. Я не помню сейчас, как называется. После установки она будет уже, можно будет таким образом открывать.
WebStorm?
Нет, не WebStorm. Вот PyCharm, я же говорю, PyCharm, после установки PyCharm, как уже запустите ваше Django приложение, как этот файл появится, PyCharm уже будет сам предлагать установку, там, extension для вот этого PyCharm, чтобы внутри PyCharm открыть. Отдельно вам не нужно будет ставить там SQLite. То есть отдельно какую-то программу для открытия SQLite не нужно. Хотя это, в принципе, отсюда можно и не смотреть. Но если вам нужно, тогда можно будет установить extension. Так, еще вопросы?
Извините, а на Visual Studio Code все это же можно, да, проделывать?
Да, можно внутри Visual Studio Code тоже, но на примере, вот в лекциях я буду показывать в PyCharm, там, в принципе, то же самое, можно будет и там делать. Просто
Окей.
тут, наверное, удобно будет для Python, потому что некоторые вещи, вот, например, вот те же самые environment, они более правильно будут подсказывать тот или иной, ту или иную подсказку. Поэтому и там, в принципе, нет разницы, где будет и писать. Главное, чтобы работало. Работало и все понимали. Да, для некоторых компьютеров, если значит, по ресурсам не будет хватать, PyCharm он намного больше весит, чем Visual Studio Code, будет требовать ресурсы тоже побольше. Поэтому, если компьютер позволяет, тогда устанавливаем PyCharm. Если после установки там сильно зависает или там не так работает, тогда можно будет работать внутри Visual Studio Code или вообще, в принципе, Sublime тоже пойдет. Так.
А вы
Вопросы?
скинете слайды после лекции?
Да, слайды я сейчас новый этап создам, скину. Так, еще вопросы? Так, окей. Если вопросов нет, тогда, в принципе, все. Так, я давайте закончу рекорд.